Bill and Debbie and Kathy, do you guys want to come over with you? I don't know if you guys have any feelings.
We actually, Mr. Mallard, did you, were you going to
Sit at the table so you can see.
introduce anything or?
No.
Okay.
No, they got the
What's-
information from last time.
Alice doesn't bite anymore.
So press
I
release.
haven't said yet.
This is one of the things that press release had in the last time that we reviewed, so.
And
it's-
the option that's available for the board
Right.
is that while there are no guns allowed in any school at any time, that's clear in law, there is the option for the board to have a provision where someone who drove onto our parking lot in any of our schools would be able to take his or her legally carried loaded gun and put it into a locked glove compartment or a box in the car, or remove the ammunition inside the car and then take the unloaded weapon and put it into the trunk. So that is an option for boards. And that was, we talked about it in the policy committee and had feelings about that. We also, within another safety meeting that we had in the last week, spoke with the police, our local police. We were doing a safety exercise and wanted to talk about the implementation of concealed carry. And they're going to do some research because, at least on, face value, just knowing that it would be implemented, that because we talked about what is the reaction of the principal and the office staff if someone were to come into school and forget, have a holster on, or, legally carrying a, concealed weapon. And, his jacket opens as he's leaning over, to take a skid out or something. The reaction to school right now would be to call 911. And in fact, to press the panic button. Because they have no way to know whether that person is there, for any reason. Someone could say, I'm here for a reason, and so that would be their reaction right now. But as we talked, we realized that 49 other states have this law that's been in effect, and so the police are going to do some research and to see how schools have reacted and to give us some informed procedures that have been in place in other states. So I just wanted to give you that's new information.
Right, and we received a letter recently kind of going over this and
Right.
identifying what the
Yes.
legalese is related to this and everything as well, so.
Right, and Bill and I had the pleasure of going back and forth with him just a little bit after our scheduling committee meeting.
Pleasure.
I'm sure he enjoyed it. He's gritting his teeth right now. But I of course had a lot of questions. I'm not sure how I feel. I know David you're gonna look and see what your school does. Something that Bill brought up to me is, and if we have one set of rules, what about the high school? They have a separate set of, you know what I mean? Like, I would personally want it to mirror what the high school is doing. Otherwise, it's gonna be kind of confusing for parents.
Well, they can adapt.
I don't know how I feel about this, so.
I mean, the law is very clear right now that guns can't be in the school room.
That's
very clear.
But can they leave them in their car is the
That's
question.
the question that we have to address.
Here's a question I have, what does that look like? So, gentleman comes on the property, has a gun on, loaded gun, and he's gotta put it in his trunk, so he has his loaded gun, and he opens the trunk, everybody's around.
He's
and
supposed to
takes
take
the-
out, he's supposed to take out
Oh,
the.
now he takes the bullets
Yes,
out, and
yes.
everybody's around.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I just have a major problem with that.
The way that-
I'm a strong, firearm guy, but I think that's crazy.
The way that the law is written is they have two options. They have a lockbox in the car, they take the weapon out, put it in the lockbox, lock it up. Or they unload it, go to the trunk, and put it in the lockbox in the trunk. Those are the two options. If it's even on campus, I mean, wherever else they are. On school grounds, they, don't have that option.
No, they do. They have it
They
on
have it.
school grounds. They have the option. In a school, the building.
Right.
Right,
You
that's
may
Right, once
not
they
go to
leave the
school.
parking lot, they're basically violating the law, unless they have a legal permit to carry on the property or like our on-site officer.
Which would not be a private citizen, that'd be law enforcement.
That's correct, law enforcement only. So, I mean, there are things that they're not supposed, so if they come in and they're supposed to have a firearm, they're already,
Or
doing
out
something
to the
illegal.
softball field, that's also banned.
Yes,
That's also prohibited.
correct.
As the police told us,
That's good.
as the police told us, it's banned in a lot of places. It's in churches and movie theaters. restaurant, I mean, it's banned in a lot of places.
It comes down to the
It's
parking.
banned in the parking lot.
Okay.
Sports arenas.
I think bowling bars are okay.
My husband's a police officer and he carries all the time. And he's very careful about how he does things when he has to put things in cars. And most gun carriers probably are, so I don't think it would be as obvious as people would think. I shared with the administrative team. I'm surprised about the routine my husband goes through to put it in a car, and I'm surprised that nobody has ever called the police on us. You know, and I've seen him do it hundreds of times. And he's very discreet in what he does, and nobody would know what he's doing, because clearly nobody's ever called the police on him. And I'm surprised, I shared with the administrative team how surprised I am that he openly will take his gun off of his body and put it inside the trunk of the car or inside the car.
Cindy asked me my personal opinion. My personal opinion is guns don't belong on school property. And that's just, it's not an it. However, we have to realize that this is their right. They've gone through classes to be certified, and we will have members of our community who get certified and will carry a gun. So when we make this consideration, we have to think about that parent who pulls up here to come to a parent-teacher conference and all of a sudden realizes they have a gun. What do? Drive off campus back home and then come back? Or do we provide, I mean, it's a, you know, it's a, where do we want to be at, you know, with this law? That we have to deal with the laws here.
How do we enforce this? Let's say somebody comes in,
That's the other
and
part.
a
That's the other
minute,
part.
and a minute later, they're like, oh, yeah, I drove home, but you know, he didn't drive home. How do we enforce that? I mean, do we have the rights to tell people what they can and can't do on their car? I don't know.
Police told us that we would just call the police. We aren't the arbiters of that or ability to do that.
If we thought somebody was armed, we'd call.
They said if a parent or somebody sees somebody out on the campus, you know, just in here to pick their kid up with a gun, call
We
them.
would call, because we don't know if that person has a permit to carry concealed weapon, so we have no way to do that. Would not approach someone who had a gun.
So our decision now as a board is whether we allow them to bring them into the building?
No,
That's against the law. There's no
That's
question.
right.
That's
why the
what we
state-
allow them to do when they get in the parking lot, should they have it. They can't even leave the parking, they're not supposed to leave the parking lot.
Mike, why are you over there? Aren't you over there to stop stuff like this?
That's a good question.
It's not like it's.
The problem was, I saw an email saying that the law was wrong.
That's what Al, I guess.
Did we clarify what was said before? Because I didn't see any
I'm
response.
so
to it.
unclear right now, it's
What was that?
Al, it's really about.
You know the email I'm talking
Very
about?
Yes, I do. It's really about, it deals with just the parking lot. Okay, anywhere else on school grounds, they're violating the law.
Alright.
Okay, so it's what happens when they get in the parking lot and realize, darn it, I have my gun, what am I supposed to do? So what is our rule gonna be? What's that?
Do we send them home?
What else?
Or do they-
We call it vehicle, I don't know.
Essentially, it's, do you want a sign posted on here at Old Quarry, on 127th Street at the mouth to the parking lot that says, no guns allowed on this property? And whatever the, legal terminology would be. That's one option. The other option is, and it's gonna be a very long
Very
sign.
long
Your gun must be secured, on the parking lot, your gun must be secured in a locked, cabinet.
I compared it
I don't know the legal
to,
language.
We can just have it
Joanne
recorded.
was there.
Yes,
too.
right, exactly, press this
It's like an
button.
airport.
I compared it to the cell phone usage, like it took parents so long to get used to that, and it really isn't until they pass it statewide that you cannot drive and be on your cell phone, that you, I don't see it, I'm not doing traffic duty,
They still do.
but they do, oh yeah.
We knock on windows and we tell them that they still do.
Cindy, at Moraine Valley Community College where I work, we have a sworn police force. So they carry weapons, we have a jail cell, we have a police building. And our police chief, Patrick O'Connor, wrote the policy for all state universities and colleges. So he wrote it. And the policy he wrote is very similar to the policy that's been added at the bottom of page 3. And as he explained it to me,
Can you
it's,
pull that up? Oh, really, it's not this?
it's there. And as he explained it to me, it's very similar to the description that Mary Gregg has given. It's carving out a very narrow exception for licensed private citizens in their vehicle or on their motorcycle, if that's their vehicle. It doesn't extend to the entire parking lot, it extends to them in or at their vehicle. And as our police chief at Marine Valley described it, he believes it's a very reasonable accommodation that gives legal gun, concealed carry gun owners the right to drive down 55, they're legal, drive up State Street, they're legal, drive on 127, they're legal, they're coming to their daughter's softball game. They should be able to get into the parking lot, lock their gun legally, and then get out of the car and go to their daughter's softball game. He believes it's a reasonable accommodation, and it's, in the long run, going to cause fewer problems than if we drew the line at the street.
The tough part, Mike, is maybe monitoring that even, or an hour, it would be, if we did say no guns on properties, you know, somebody can come on and then what do we have? We have people going car to car verifying that there's.
No.
That's what I'm saying, so we can't do that. So, I mean, having something like this at least allows us.
If we had this, then they can come lock in the car, and that's it.
Yes.
If we said no guns at all, one, we wouldn't expect you guys to be out there searching cars.
Right.
At that point, you would call the police if you saw them, and that would be the end of it.
They would actually, if they see a gun that, sitting on the seat, they would be calling the police. So if they happen to be walking by, even with this in place, if it's out in the open, it's still not abiding to.
And the police also advise us that if someone reports that somebody has a gun in the parking lot, we just call them, and let them worry about them getting the license and all that stuff. So either way, it's not a monitoring issue as much as it is, as Dave just said, that was a nice way that your chief put it. It's realizing that we have a law that we have to deal with. And we want to deal with either before they pull off 127th Street, or give them an opportunity to fix it before they go to the softball game or soccer match or come into the building or whatever.
With a sign that reminds them.
So, I mean, when in doubt, regardless of what we have here, when in doubt, you guys have the ability to call 911. In any case,
Not even doubt.
No,
It's
yeah.
like there's a gun,
It's-
Right.
there's
Just
no doubt,
it's
there's
all-
no doubt.
and let them, so,
If there's a suspicion.
right.
Yeah.
So that's, that I'm comfortable with. I don't think any of us are excited to have guns anywhere near a school facility. However, you've also got to remember that these folks who have been licensed in class, the school might not be their only stop. And so, I mean, we have to consider it, so it's just not fun to discuss, it's anywhere about it.
Well, I like this language. Does anybody else have any?
Just review the language, we'll be reviewing second policy
Or it
reading.
never comes out of the premises at all.
We'll be doing a second policy reading, and we'll be making a decision during the second policy reading at the next regular scheduled meeting, so just read up on it.
Right, it's like Bill said too, then you always have the chance of someone, well, but I can't hand it out, but I still have it, and he brings it in anyway, and nobody ever knows, but.
Well, let's hope that,
But
those signs that
that would have
police
to be
are
ours.
here.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we know what the high school's gonna do, or we don't know yet?
Christie, over there.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Probably, we're probably gonna change